And here it is, the Timeless Watch HMS. But before my review, let's have a quick look at the spec. Hello and welcome to another review. Now it's autumn here in the UK, which basically means that it's going to be rubbish weather now for the next 7 months. But I've got to say that I do really love Halloween and that time between Halloween and Christmas. It's just a shame that wearing jumpers and jackets all the time tends to hide the watches that I wear. But anyway, quick wrist check, and today I'm wearing the Architect from Dutch Microbrand Batavi, and here it is in Tony Purple. Now the case is stainless steel and has a diameter of 39mm and look-to-lug of 47mm, but I think it sits a lot bigger on my 7.5-inch wrists. I just love the way that sits on there. But today I'm looking at the HMS number 1 from Swiss microbrand Timeless. Now this is the first model of the Timeless brand, and the Timeless logo is something that I was kind of drawn to initially when I researched this brand. It's this whirlwind motif, and the branding is used throughout the watch. The dial was constructed with this like a central aperture to reveal the hour wheel, again in this whirlwind design, and it appears on the crown and on the case back. So for me it's a very well branded watch. The HMS is a neo-vintage watch, and the standout feature is this Guilloché-finished decorative dial. Now the design is very precise, and I mean really precise. It's an extremely intricate and has a repetitive pattern which was created by mechanically engraving into brass metal via engine turning. Now guilloche is a decorative technique that screams sophistication. A classic example of famous works using that guilloche technique are the engravings of Fabergé eggs. So just focusing on this dial a little longer, it's quite mesmerizing actually. The pattern looks like the design is interwoven into one another, and in some cases, depending on the angle, looks like the spirals are interlocked with each other. That really is quite stunning, but at the same time, without that overcomplication of design that would kind of make this watch feel a lot more decorated if it was a bit more complex. It's intricate, yes, but it maintains a very simplistic design, and for me that's what gives it that sophisticated feel. It sits within a 41.5mm case. Lug to lug is 47mm, 22mm at the lug, and is 12.8mm thick. It's also got a 50-meter water resistance. Now the movement is the Swiss Technology Production 111 or STP 111, manufactured in Switzerland but ultimately owned by the Fossil Group. The movement is basically a clone of the proven ETA 2824-2, which is one of the most well-known movements in the watch industry and a bit of a workhorse. Now the STP 111 has a 44-hour power reserve, 28,800 beats per hour and 26 joules. Now the date window is at 6 PM, which I'll talk more about in a second. The case back is screwed, which for me is, I don't know, kind of a shame, because the STP 111, it's not an unattractive movement, and I think that maybe a exhibition case back showcasing a dual barrel bridge and a branded rotor, perhaps even in that rose gold, I don't know, it would have perhaps complemented such a stunning dial in my personal opinion. But you know, there's also an argument that having such an intricate display on the back would have somewhat diluted that Guilloché-finished decorative dial at the front, which I guess is the key visible feature of this watch. Going back to the date window, it's at 6 o'clock. It's printed in black with a copper coloured background that matches these pink or rose gold hands, the central hour wheel as well, and also the other detail on the crown and the lugs, which again I'll come back to. Now that date complication is sat in another rounded aperture on that Guilloché dial with black detail, and again that black is used there in the centre pin, on the crown, and on the model name, which is on the side of the case, which again I'll come back to in a sec. Now it says the word date underneath it, and I've noticed the font is fairly standard and it's not the same of the font that's used in the main Timeless logo. Now having the word date may not be for some, but actually I personally like it. I think it lends itself to a very unique design, and if it were a simple date complication, it may lose that elegance that it's trying to portray. Now the outer part of the dial is sloped down and has the hour numerals, which are printed within a minute track that surrounds it, again printed. But it's also worth noting these fonts. They look class to me with these little cuts on each halfway down of the numerals, so obviously a lot of thought has gone into detail here. There's the Timeless plaque in white that goes across from that hour wheel towards the 9 o'clock. The hands are elegantly designed, specifically the hour and the minute hand, with the second hand in silver, which for me kind of gets a little bit diluted with the complex background going on, but maybe in one way it lends itself well to the colour of the case and the hour markers. And the convex sapphire crystal with AR coating sits on top of that case and protects that beautiful dial. And speaking of the case, it's a robust stainless steel case that's satin brushed, sandblasted, and has this small plate which I mentioned earlier with the serial number of each collection applied to that, which is a lovely touch in my opinion. Now it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's detail like this that really does belong to the Timeless brand and design. Did you notice the screws are in pink gold too? The lugs are curved, microblasted with a touch of that pink gold, and the push-pull crown is made up of 3 parts, a core of steel, black PVD, which is a coating, and again a touch of pink gold, and it's designed in their whirlwind motif. Now I don't mind the black PVD, and I know that black is a strong secondary colour used in this watch and its design, but I don't know, I think the boldness of that black on the crown kind of just makes it stick out a bit like a sore thumb. Now this watch comes with calf leather straps with stitching. It feels quality and has a nice denseness to it. Now the clasp is a polished bar buckle which feels dainty. Again, it's probably something that lends itself kind of well to this watch, but I also think that maybe a slightly bolder or even a differently designed buckle to complement such a magnificent design wouldn't have looked out of place too. So the price, okay, it's 1,450 Swiss francs. Now that's approximately 1,300 British pounds, or $1,450 US in today's market, and is available on the Timeless website. Now on the wrist, it wears very comfortably on my 7.5-inch wrists, and with that fantastic Guilloché-finished brass that dominates the dial, it feels complex yet simplistic. And I can't stress more how much work must have gone into getting that piece of brass to have such careful, intricate and beautiful design engraved into it using that Guilloché technique. It would have been fantastic to see one being produced. That open hour wheel sits in the middle in pink gold with those gold hands all sat on that beautiful finished dial. It's all contained in this case with various finishes and the detail of the black and the rose gold without it being overdone. It's the perfect blend that gives you something on your wrist that goes beyond elegant for me. Now, is it worth 1,450 francs, 1,300 British pounds, 1,450 US dollars? Technically speaking, yes, as I think that the work that's gone into that brass centerpiece is worth more than its weight in gold. And if someone appreciates that work that must have gone into that specific detail, along with the other elements of this watch such as the rose gold, then yes, absolutely, the price point is spot on. Well, good morning there, Timeless Watch HMS.
Right in front of him, that could easily be skied, but in fact it ripped into the roof of the net, and Arsenal have the lead.
Good night, Timeless.